I think let's start because, all right, good morning, everyone. So very well to connect with all of you again on the session 7 of research methodology. Uh, I see some of the new faces today again, and really good to connect with all of you. I'll just put my screen 1 second into the pin mode. Yes. All right. Okay, so those who are new in the session, I'm Dr. Anubha Walia, being into the training space and into the executive coaching and OD consulting with the 22 years plus of experience now. And now with all of you through ISTD, and ISTD is pretty close to my heart. And it's always been a pleasure to, honor them in this role. Yes, you can connect with me into the social media platform, #Anubha Walia. And I represent Prism Philosophy. So there's an association with ISTD that we have. The tips and hygiene, yes, we always follow that. And we have already started doing various, application-based learning now, that whatever you're learning now, we need to apply that. So that's how it becomes easier for all of us to learn. To quickly to rebrief again, yes, those who know and those who are new, you can follow these books, right? So this is the fundamental of research, which has been written by me and Manpreet. So you can buy this book for your reference, and it's a kind of a book which is on an application mode and the real life scenario into the corporate world, specifically into the HR and the T&D domain. And definitely the other books that you can refer is Kothari sir book or else Ranjit Kumar sir book. So both of them book, I have read it very in a detailed manner and wonderfully written again. To quickly revisit, we have done 6 sessions. Session 1 was on research methodologies, types, criteria, and research application. Session 2 focused on the research problem and literature review, with the session 3 into the hypothesis formulation and research design. Followed by the session 4, which is determining the sample design, and definitely session 5 with the data collection on the qualitative perspective, and then session 6 was onto the quantitative perspective. So that was our session into the space of research, right? And today we will be talking about primary and secondary research, because primary kind of we have done a detailed deep dive, but then it's important that we take care of and understand the secondary research also, because that's very, very important. So before I jump into this, let's understand that how does that shape up and how does it take place? So let me first ask from the audience here, what is primary research and what is secondary research, and what is the difference between both of them? Anyone from the group?
Ma'am, good morning.
Good morning.
As per my understanding, primary data is something which we need to really collect from very scratch to surveys and all. And secondary data means or data are already available in different sources, and we are collecting and we are analyzing or we are utilizing those data for further research.
Well said. Okay.
Ma'am, happy morning, ma'am. Shrikant here.
Yeah, Shrikant, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, primary data are the ones which are ready reckoner. We don't need any further clarity on that. But secondary data are the ones which need to be processed, kind of data analytics to be done. We understand about the person, and then we try to formulate with the data that are available, ma'am. So primary data are, like the name suggests, which are ready reckoner data, and secondary data are the ones which actually have to be processed to understand more about the customer and then use it, ma'am.
Okay, the perspective was really new and different. Well said by both of you. So let's try and build on it. Yes, primary research is being used to collect the data directly rather than depending on the data collected from the previously done research, right? So technically, they own the data, That's the primary. So primary research is solely carried out to address a certain problem which carries an in-depth analysis. And when we see the research, yes, you will see in the business, into the organization, they themselves can conduct primary research, and they can actually employ a third party also to conduct the research on their behalf. Uh, the major aspect of primary research is that this type of research is pinpointed research is carried out only to a specific issue or a problem, and the focus is really directed to obtain a related solution. To give an example, a brand is about to launch a new model of mobile phone, let's say, and they want to conduct a research about the looks, features of the mobile, which they are going to soon introduce. So organizations can select a qualified sample of respondent that can closely resembles the population, and they conduct the primary research with them just to know their opinion, their thoughts, their perspective. And based on that research, the brand can now think of a probable solution to make a necessary changes in the looks and the features of the mobile phone. So that's why you will see that so many times the changes keeps happening, because of the need and hour of the customers. You will also see that primary research, as said in the data source, primary and secondary. The secondary is of two types, internal and external. And internal one is further divided into the fully processed and need further analysis, whereas externals are published electronic database and syndicate sources. So we'll try and understand one by one all of them. So yes, primary data, as I mentioned, it's original. It's the problem or the project specific and collected for a specific objective. And secondary is that is not a topical or a research specific and has been collected and compiled by some other researcher, by some other people, and so on, right? So you will see that when we talked in the session 4, okay, where we went deep dive into the research aspect. So the best part in the primary research, which is nowadays, we'll see we are into a technological driven world. So there is a very meaningful data is more valuable than a goal, because big data is such that there is so much of data available, but what data to use is very, very important. So in this, what happens is we basically, you will find that there is a highly validated data is required to make an informed decision. And this is the very reason why many companies are proactive to gather their own data so that they can authenticity of the data is maintained and they actually get a first-hand information without any alteration. So that's why you'll see they do interviews, Okay, let me ask you, what are the different types of primary research methods are there? Yes. Anyone?
Interviews, questionnaires, surveys, reviews, online and offline both.
Right. Right. Any other? Yes. Any other example? So see, there are so many of them for the primary and secondary. The primary are active sampling technique, brainstorming, case study, diaries method, Delphi technique, experimental method, focus group, interviews, link analysis, observation, questionnaire, principal component analysis, projective techniques, process analysis, survey, statistical method, time and motion study. In the secondary, you will see books, biographies, database, data archives, desk research, internet articles, newspaper, published census, records, research articles by the researchers and journals. So you will see the lot of way we can do primary and secondary. So if I have to ask you, which one is the most prominent one that you all have used? Anyone? Which method have you ever used? Whichever one I shared right now. Anyone would like to share?
Questionnaires and surveys are mostly.
Questionnaires and surveys are mostly. So indeed, these are the one of the very common one that we use, and so my suggestion is try and explore majorly all of them, right? Or the one you prefer is great for you. But what happens is it's really important to figure it out, which one you get a real insight, right? Because the primary data, as you understand, it's a first-hand data collected by a researcher, whereas secondary is a pre-existing. And the nature of the primary data is that this is a raw data which is open to a compilation and finding application. Whereas secondary is it is compiled data suited to fit an already established research. There is a respective editing that needs to be done, and in primary this does not require an editing as it is collected as per the specific research questions. So research question we talked about in the session 1, right? Whereas in the secondary research, rightly said by Shrikant, that yes, we need to process it out, right? So this requires an editing which has been collected for a previous research and finding a fit into the another one. And that's why you will see the reliability is very high in primary, but relatability. The reliability related approach of the relatability is quite high in primary compared to the secondary. So relatively is low. And you will also find the validity. So the validity is in the primary more at relative aspect concerning the time and place specificities there, whereas in the secondary the relativity less is due to the time and place disconnect. You will also find that another major chunk is the time and the cost involved, pretty high in the primary, whereas it is low in the secondary. Mostly you will find it the suitability aspect. When we focus on the primary, whereas the secondary has a less suitability that comes up. There are like flexibility on component, there is a adaptability component that we look into it, which is pretty high in primary research. So you will see that it becomes very, very important. And end of the day, the data which has been collected and sought we need to know this for what specific period we are doing it. Because the data which has been, let's say primary research has been collected, let's say in the 5 years back, might not be relevant in the current scenario. So don't think that the primary data which you have collected couple of years back is suitable at this point. No. So this is very, very important. The relevancy of it has to be taken care. Okay. There is another aspect to it in the after the primary, in the secondary one. The various resources are there, but you will find that researcher use secondary data from the literature review. And literature review becomes very, very important to know what all things have happened. And this is no way sufficient and must be supplemented with the primary source, let me tell you. Because we are doing that, so the extension of primary data and secondary data, that culmination of it forms the third type of it, which is called combination data. Okay, so all research began with the secondary data, which is found insufficient or less liable or less suitable, backed by the primary data. And when we do this form of primary and secondary alongside, this is called combination data. Okay, so the combination data is really suitable, and I will find the best of the people are working on both the things. So combination data becomes easy because you find that the very implication of the adequacy of the data gets covered here. The accuracy is being maintained because the researcher can actually understand as per the degree of accuracy and the necessary and the critical to the research. The comparison can be done that the investigators should they should actually ensure that secondary data is logical, consistent, and comparable. And that is why sometimes when it is not, so we back up with the primary data. There is also a test checking that needs to be done, which is like to ensure that entire objective that we want to achieve, the results that we want to achieve, gets a respective test checking, which involves a check of the data collection technique and an instrument which has been involved. Okay. So that's how it goes very, very strongly. Now, when we talk about usage of secondary data, indeed, the problem identification and formulation stage becomes very important, because here we focus on the past data, the information on a respective topic that you want to cover. And you will see it's very, very important to develop the conceptual framework for the investigation. Now, in that conceptual framework, you should know what are my variables, which is my independent variable, which is my dependent variable. Even if there is an intermediate variable, what is that? It has to be very, very clear. And this we touched in the second session. Those who have missed out, you can refer back to my notes, you can refer to the YouTube channel, and you can always ask the ISTD team members also, they can give you that. Post that, we do hypothesis designing. So hypothesis designing, we did again a deep dive study into it. And in this, we get to know what we really need to actually translate into a testable hypothesis for the study. And we really come up with a statement, right? When either we create a null hypothesis or an alternative hypothesis. That's how it goes. And then based on that, we do a sampling consideration. So sampling consideration is absolutely a respondent relatable database, which is like the kind of required for the statistics for the respective contact details. So the kind of samples which we pull out from the population helps us to know how to work on the sample design. Then there is a primary base. So primary base focus on the questionnaire designing. Now the designing of the questionnaire also is a very, very important aspect in our research, because so many times, we are into that periphery of designing a questionnaire. Some questionnaires we copy in terms, we use it, which is already established, and we witness it that yes, we are using X and Y's instrument. That means instrument means basically questionnaire. So suppose I want to check the let's say situational leadership theory, right, which has been there. So situational leadership talks about 4 leadership styles. So telling, selling, participating, and delegating. Now, if I want to know, so this has been already the questionnaire has been already been given by the researcher. So we use that questionnaire, apply it in our questionnaire in our study. So that is where I get to know the perspective from the real current base, which means the questionnaire has already been established. Now, sometimes what happens is we change some questions in that questionnaire based on the country or the context that we are using. So when we do that, we need to vet that. For vetting that, we do reliability and validity test. So that is how we use it. And then finally, the validation and authentication of the board, which is focusing on the earlier records and studies which has been there for the data pool. And that is how it works on. So you find that the secondary data gets used very strongly by people, and it becomes very, very relevant, very, very important. And you will find that, yes, people are working with a lot of time the secondary research. And there's nothing wrong in that. It is very, very important. It is plays a very relevant role in our life. Now, when we talk about the further deep dive into it, the secondary data has a respective disadvantage. The first one is the resource, where exactly we are getting the secondary data from. And, so the advantage is that nowadays you will find the lot of research keeps happening, right? So just to give you an example, I'm stop sharing this particular screen, and I'll show you something from the Google, right? 1 minute. I'll just open the Google. Okay. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So you write Google Scholar, okay? So once you go to the Google Scholar, open the Google Scholar. Now tell me any topic that you want to research on. Anyone, give me any one topic and I'll tell you how to do that. Yes, anyone.
Data analytics, ma'am.
19,60,000. Can you see these results?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see so much of research is happening? Now you can go further deep dive into it. So in data analytics, what do you want to know? What research do you want to do? So you have to make the research narrow down. So in the data, and you want to do a research on data analytic techniques, you want to do it on framework, challenges, see, all this is there. Or let's say in India. ठीक है जी? It has become now 3,05,000. Now, if you want to know since 2022, can you see on my left, now I've clicked this. The result has become 6,720. Understand now one thing, that there is a scope of research which can be done, and these are all now can be used for the reference. And if I open this particular, okay, in the research gate, see, now that's how the person has done a research. And if I go back to my last, yeah, look at the research, this reference. So this becomes a reference point. This is my secondary research. So this individual has done a research, and that's how he is referred. Okay, where he has used the insight for his or her particular research paper. Has it been clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So now this helps you to know that yes, research can actually go to a very deep dive inside, and you can actually do a research. That's the benefit of the secondary data research. Okay, and the person, so this is one of the way how you get to know how other people have done, and you can take the reference point. Then accessibility of data, which is again I've just shown you, and you can also get to know that okay, if my the sample and the population is respected to a particular approach, I can definitely get that access and I can use it. And then accuracy and stability of the data, because see 2022 there was 6,000, that means so much of recent research data has happened. It's only 3 months and so much of research has happened on this particular topic, right? And then we can assess the data accordingly. So you will see that there are drawbacks to it also. Now, if I have to ask you, what could be the drawback of the secondary data? Anyone? Disadvantages of secondary data.
Ma'am, it is more of a kind of correlation study, ma'am. So in case if the perception is wrong, or if the data fed is not accurate, there are every chance that the output may not be accurate, ma'am.
Okay, very true. Someone else? Anyone else would like to share about it?
I guess it is important because we can take advantage and references from the secondary data as and when we require, and that is quite useful for our data management system.
Okay, nice. So let's try and understand. Good. So in the the applicability of data and accuracy of data. But let me tell you what happens is, first, I would say, as per my experience, questionable data. Now, with the secondary research, it is really hard to determine the authenticity of the data because the researcher is not directly involved with the research process. So, invalid data can actually affect the research outcomes negatively. Hence, it becomes important for the researcher to take extra care by evaluating the data before making it a use of for the purpose. The second one, what I have observed is generalization. What happens is, as the secondary data is unspecific and may not directly cater to the need. So there may not be a correlation between the existing data and the research process, what one of the participants just mentioned. Also, you will see the common data. Now, research material in the secondary research they are not exclusive to an individual or group. This means that everyone has access to the data. There is little or no information advantage gained by those who obtain the research. That's the element. You will also see that it has a risk of outdated research material. So it may offer a little value, especially for organization which is competing in the fast changing markets. So that's why it is really important to understand how to work on that, right?
Ma'am, can you, sorry ma'am, I didn't get the clarity on this. Can you please give some more light on this, ma'am?
The last point?
Yes, ma'am, the last point.
So what I'm saying is the risk of outdated research material. Okay, so right now when I showed you in the Google Scholar from 2022, so you can still get the current data, but so many times. So once I'll tell you, let me share my screen in this one. Can you see the government publications?
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, imagine the census data we have to take. Okay, the census data is been done every 10 years. It's a decade data. Okay, now let's say I want to know the in 2018 I want to know it about something. Okay, but I have the consensus which has been done in 2011, a lag of 7 years. Now what happens is there could be a little bit information which is not necessary can be used, because in the current set of organization that we have, there is a very fast changing thought process, attitude. You imagine yourself 2 years back, what was our attitude, and 2 years later, how the attitude has changed. I can't use the same thought process of 7 or 8 years back data. So that is why I said can be a risk of outdated research material, and we really need to see the secondary data becomes a challenge. Are we good now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I understand. Ma'am, one more point is like in this secondary data, ma'am, since the data are mostly, I mean, the sources are available for everyone, ma'am. Is there a chance for too much of competition on this, that for example, the same data, assume that there are 5 of us doing research at the same time, and all 5 of us will be using the same data, which might not be the case when it is primary data, no, because primary data, it is mostly direct, and chance of leaking or competition with the data is minimal.
Absolutely.
Is there
yeah, very high chances, very, very high chances. And that is why the challenge is we don't see the real applicability. That's the major drawback. So for the purpose that you're doing, 5 people doing the same kind of research, 5 people might get the same kind of data and the little bit of variance of analysis, but then the objective might not meet. So that's why it's very important. Yeah, that's why I said use the combination of data, primary and secondary both. That is the real insight. Well,
okay, yeah. Thank you.
So, that's why we say, I mean, we'll take it up from here because it's important to know. Authentication of your secondary data is a must. So the methods that you're checking in, the sampling frame used, the data collection tools, the method of analysis, the hypothesis testing becomes so very important here that I can tell you. And sampling frame, in the last class, I talked about the sampling unit, sampling frame. Sometimes it becomes very challenging, and the entire frame becomes very important in our population, which one we are picking and how we can use it for the analysis purpose. And accuracy check, again, the credibility of the data, the sources, and sometimes misrepresentation of data also happens. So that's why it's really important. You need to do the recent findings of the data, the similarity of the environment under the study with the past study. Because if that environment was different and today the environment is different, there's a two different thing altogether. So we really have to check and figure it out. So nowadays you will see this, there are a lot of asks is started happening, a lot of people have started talking about the students who will be passing out in the COVID, their mindset, their thought process. It's because 2 years they've not been into the in-person sessions. Imagine 11th and 12th class students. Don't you feel their learnings would be different? The research has started happening on it, and they're going to check on how it's going to impact after 5 years from now. So it could be good, it could be bad, we don't know. But the research has started working on it. The people have started working on the impact also. So we can't use this. So the COVID data will be a COVID data. So we have to figure it out. Then the financial check. The costing of the cost of assessing the past and the recorded data in terms of relevance of the study. Sometimes people just used to collect the data, So we really don't know how deep dive in a dipstick study has been done. So authentication is very, very important for all of us. So you will find that there are a lot of internal data sources the organization use, the company records, employee records, sales data. Other sources are also there like CRM, warranty record, receipt, salesperson's call, invoices, reports, demographic, performance appraisals, grievances, policy documents. These are all internal records that gets used. And you will see the organization do use and they do a lot of analysis on the basis of the forecasting. So you will see the stats gets used very deeply into it. Then there is also an external sources like common sources and other sources that we have. Just to give an example, that is, yes, we have, statistical abstract Indian annually, which has been done, white papers on national income, survey industries that we use, monthly survey of selected industries. We also have foreign trade information, wholesale price index, which gets published, economic survey annual publications, NSS, a very strong one for the planning commission by the government of India. That's, take out a lot of information. Then there is a non-government publications, a lot of people use stock exchange directory, Bombay Stock Exchange is there, the status reports by the various commodity boards, so you will see the spices, chemicals, sugar, pesticides, handicrafts, plantation boards, they keep taking all such reports, Then there is various associations, they do a lot of industrial research and they do a lot of, take out the data point. So you see that FICCI, ASSOCHAM, IMA, Chartered Accountants, then Financial Analysis, Indo Chambers of Commerce. So they all take out the data. Then export related, very important. You will find that, yes, how much import has happened, how much export has happened, which product is getting imported, exported. Retail store audit, you will see another reports. Readership survey is another one. What kind of people are doing reading the behavior changes segments. The Thompson indices are there, which talks about the rural market. So that's how you will find that various kind of things being used. Okay, so that is what it talks about into the secondary aspect. Now in the secondary, you will find that there are questions which get asked before conducting a secondary research also. Let me tell you this, don't think that we don't ask, we only ask question into the primary research. So we know that secondary research actually relies on the existing data. So we must take care to ensure that we utilize the authentic data for the sample of the research. So falsified data can have a negative impact on your research outcome. So it's very important to carry out a resources evaluation by asking a number of questions, for this. So you can actually ask, what is the purpose of research? It is important for every researcher to actually clearly define the purpose of the research before proceeding with it. And, the research purpose actually determines the approach that would be adopted. Then once you know the purpose of research, you should know what is the research methodology that you're going to work on, which is like after identifying the purpose of the research, the very important thing is outline of the research methodology. So this is the point where the researcher choose and gather data using the secondary research method. Whenever you're using any research, you should be telling why are we using secondary, why are you using primary. So the why answer should be there with all of you. Then what is my expected research outcome? That's the third question. So you should be knowing about what exactly outcome you are expecting out of the research. Then fourth question, who collected the data needs to be analyzed. So before you go on to use your secondary data for your research, very necessary to ascertain the authenticity of the information. And it usually affects the data, which is reliability, and determines if researcher can trust that material or not. So example, if you gather a data from the personal blog, or let's say from website, may not be as credible as information obtained from an organization website. So because websites are usually get changed after every 2 years. So every 3 months, it's not quarterly, it's not changing. So that's why people prefer blogs. Then when the data was collected, that's also very, very important. So the data recency is another factor, you will see that to be considered by all of you. Now, if you're carrying out a research into the number of women who smoke in London, it would not be appropriate for you to make use of that information that was gathered 5 years ago, unless you plan to do something sort of data comparison. Correct? So, or let's say if I want to use that data for my Indian context, not possible. Also, you will see the sixth question is the data consistent with other data available from the other sources or not? So always compare and contrast your data with the other available research material. And that's how you will also get to know the inconsistencies which are there. Also, what type of data needs to be collected, that is, it determines if the secondary data is aligned with your research goal or objective or not. And then finally, how the data was collected. So these questions need to be asked before you're going for a secondary research. Any query, any question? Yep. Any query, any question before I put you all in a situation.
Now, if you talk about the practical scenario in a corporate role, right, and how much the percentage of this about combination of data, or we need to go for case-to-case basis, the purpose and objective and methodology, where to be used and how to be used, right? It's talking about if I'm more focused on the primary data, keeping on the objective is in mind, basically depends, or it's a framework that when we need to use the certain percentage of data on for accuracy purpose.
No. It's so as I mentioned, the 8 questions. Purpose should be very, very clear. The first thing, and based on the purpose, you will see the research methodology. Whether you want to go for primary or secondary, that you will decide. And I'm telling you, for these 2 questions only will give you very clarity about it. In the corporate scenario, trust me, a lot of primary research happens.
Right.
We do consider secondary research, but you will see the best of the organization. I mean, in my experience, I can say, in my organization, wherever I have done the research or any kind of project that has been initiated, we have worked on the combination, past data as well as the primary data. we really need to know how the changes are happening. So let me give you an example. When I was serving in the banking sector, so we really wanted to know how the things have shaped up into the the customer after the changes has happened. When we talk about changes, let's say when we talk about when the ATM came in, how the people will react. Okay, shall we implement it or not? I remember when we implemented a crisp concept, which is cash received in sealed packet. We trying to find out, okay, how it would be beneficial for an organization to use it. The banking sector should work on it. Bank at home was another example. We wanted to know whether the customers would be very comfortable to get their cash collected or not. The van coming from at their place. So some were okay, some were not okay, and then finally it was implemented. It was quite successful. Okay, and you will now see even the public sector bank have started using this. So these are with the additional services, additional charges, and they are working on it and they're using it. So you can work and you can use and you can relate to it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So what we'll do right now is we'll figure it out. I'm just going to put you guys into a breakout room and you're going to come up with an answer. So let's say you've been appointed by an Indian famous designer, Ravi Bajaj. Okay, who wants to start an economy line and would like to know how is the fashion market composed and what is the profile of the avid fashion followers. You can conduct an interview or structured interview to obtain an information. But let's say we are not conducting an interview. What all thought process comes in your mind? How will you proceed to it for the primary and secondary? Let's come up with an answer with that. Is the query clear?
It was, ma'am.
Yeah, so I'm going to put this in the chat box also for all of you. Okay, I'm putting you all in a breakout room. The 2 rooms are there. Kindly please request to join the group. And we will be doing this task for 15 minutes. I'll open the rooms at 12 o'clock. It's 11:47 by my watch. 13 minutes I'm going to give you all. So Faz, Madhavi, Suraj, please join the group. So now let's start understanding. Which group would like to go first? Group 1 or group 2?
Group 1, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so it's Arjun, Neelam and Shrikant, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Let's go to you. All right. So let's understand from your perspective what you mean and understand and how will you do it for the famous designer Ravi Bajaj. How are you going to support? Yes.
So for Ravi Bajaj, composition of fashion market. So few research can be done on like what is the age group of the people for the economic line, what is the age group, the spending pattern, the income group, like what is the maximum income which falls for the economy line. Okay, and then the for the occasion they are buying for, like whether it is for ethnic wear or formal or casual wear, what kind of clothes they want to buy, the discounts and offers that is available, plus how they like to buy, the mode of buying, whether it is offline or online, the demographics or the geographical presence and the data, and plus it will relate to the climate type as well, what kind of climate that particular city or that particular country has, the type of fabrics to use, the type of fabrics they prefer based on the climate. And well, we know that fashion comes 4 times a year, so basis which time the economic line will keep on changing and what will be the pattern for that. And for the B point, which is the following the profile of avid fashion followers, the profile of avid fashion followers. So they can be influencers, like who are the most influencers in different age groups. Okay, so mostly influencers now these days are young adults basically. So what kind of clothes and what kind of style they have? Some may have bohemian style, some may have a very business-like style, some may have very casual style. So the style they choose, they prefer, and designers they follow, because it's for the economic line, people who buy from economic line, they follow high designers, but they want cheap copies of the high designers creations. So what kind of thing which we can do in that line? Friends and families and neighbors, what kind of, they also influences us, the surroundings as well. Okay. And age group I have already said. So these are the key pointers which we were discussing.
Okay, all right. Well thought, I would say. I mean, I like the way you all talked about the profiling of the uh, people who will go for it. So nice thought. Let me hear from the group too and understand. So Faz, Kavita, Madhavi,
Yeah,
and
I would just like to add some points.
yeah,
I entered, midway through their discussion.
no worries.
So I would like to say if I was a designer and if I had to have a target audience for my designs, I would rather create a brand which targets the niche market and a sub brand which probably creates would be economical for the general mass.
Mm-hmm.
So my target would be probably the industrialists and celebrities, and for my sub brand probably I would target the upper middle class and the lower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even I mean my team, y'all also could add some points.
Yeah, ma'am, we talked about a few of the pointers where we're talking about specifically a fashion boutique designer. There is individualistic designer, all industries working, right? Talking about Sabyasachi, Manish Malhotra, or Tarun Tehlani, right? We're talking about specifically who are the players in the industry, right? Rahul Bajaj, we're talking about there might be 10, 15, or 20 guys in the industries running, right? If we say the Latin fashion show, all international fashion shows, these are the people who are running the shows, right? So we need to know how those guys are working on the particular segment and what particular the fashion pens they are using. So we'll be talking about the interview specifically those designers also, right? The second aspect we're talking about association they attach with, and mostly these particular private players or individual players they're associated with private institutions, right? Like fashion shows or few of the fashion shows associations, right? We will be interviewing those guys, right, to know exactly what the trend of the industry, because every year they are conducting a show, right? Every year the trend been changing, the target segments might remain the same, right? If you talk about specifically the fashion shows done under metros only, nothing done in the bigger cities or A plus cities, right? So we'll be talking about interviewing those guys who are attached with those associations, specifically privately associated associations, because this industry is running that way only, right? And third aspect we're talking about, these guys are not manufacturing, right? They are customizing the product. They're leveling their brand, right? They're giving some job workers as customized designers who specifically manufactures, buy and fabrics and design it and manufacturing, right? Right. We're talking about those segments who are catering for this particular individualists or boutique designers. Correct. And third one is we're talking the retailing. See, these guys now came in the retailing part also. Specifically, they are not targeting specifically industries or in classes. Now they are coming to online shopping, some of the few own shops, right, in malls, and coming into big and cities also, right? So they are now segmenting to upper middle class families also, or middle class families also, with a lower price tag segment. Otherwise, we and I can afford a Sabyasachi designer suits, right? So fifth point, we're talking about a customer feedback. Specifically talking about, we'll be conducting on the metros specifically, because those are the 80% of the customers are segmenting in those regions. Customer feedback we need to know, because the trend been changing.
Very true.
It keep on changing in every 3, 4, 5 months down the line. These are specifically we touch upon the first point we're talking about. The second we're talking about the industries. Sorry.
Models and influencers.
Yeah. Madhavi, can you add on the second point? If some pointers.
Yeah, the first point was industrials, all or celebrities, model. Second is models and influencers.
Hmm.
Third was general mass, and
Yeah, the middle class and the general mass.
yeah, and fourth one is public.
Okay. Okay.
So specifically, if you talk about the general and middle class families, because now we have seen Ritu Kumar specifically, one of the finest fashion is that he came to retail shop also, right? I'm talking about the malls also, on online buyings also, with a lower price tag segment. So now the trend been changing to catering to B grade and C grade cities also, specifically on certain percentage on a lower and mid-level customers. We're not talking about the masses. We're talking about a particular class, probably middle class and HNIs.
Hmm. Okay.
Also, I would like to add a point.
Yeah.
Maybe we could use the, the second level of like influencers and models to probably market our brand, market the brand.
Right.
Very true.
And also for the lower mass, like not the niche market, for the general mass, probably end of season, as you know, every season we have a sale that happens. So probably end of season sale, so that even the general mass can have a feel of that particular brand and feel good about it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Suresh, want to put some ad on points? Yeah, Suraj.
We even spoke about the customer feedback to be taken actually in different formats so that
Fantastic.
you arrive at yeah.
Now, this is where I was looking at, because if you see, I like the perspective that you guys have came up with, I'd say the bigger perspective about various designers, where can the data can be collected, what the customers are really expecting, even this customer feedback, very, very important. So end of the day, when, we're talking about a famous designer, Ravi Bajaj, he has his own particular style. He is a very a designer with a high-end customer, with a product line which is very expensive in nature, right? So if we talk about his Indian attire, when I say the lehenga choli that we have, right, it might not be less than 4 to 5 lakhs minimum. That's the profiling of the customers which are there who are buying his product. So now he wants to shift to economy line. And from this to this, okay, now even that economy line, what are we considering? So how his fashion market is composed of, so I mean, rightly said by all of you, but then yes, we really need to figure it out, the purpose of this. The purpose is economy line, whether he should go into the economy line or not. Okay, what is the reason of he moving into the economy line? Does he want to make a mass, he want to enter into the mass, or he want to enter in, be in this niche element also? So the moment that clarity is there, then based on that, I will check on the profiling of the fashion followers. So the bloggers are there, the models who are there, rightly said, very nicely structured, right? But right now I'm just putting into a structure for all of you. So first I need to the purpose, that's why I put it into the chat box for all of you. Then you need to know your research methodology. Are you want to going into qualitative or quantitative? And then in that, how much do you want to go into the secondary, and then how much do you want to go into the primary? That's also very, very important. So even in the secondary, I like the last gentleman, I'm sorry, I didn't see who was it, when they said about the feedback, real feedback from the customers. So people who are doing an online shopping, maybe from Amazon, maybe from Azio, or maybe from Biba, or let's say other people, because they are selling a line which is, I will not say economy line, but they are comparatively much reasonable and handpicked by various customers. We get to know that what is the currently the customers are looking at, and then finally the outcomes that I'm looking at, what I really want, that is what exactly the Ravi Bajaj wants. and then putting it across, and then finally analyzing the data. Whatever data you get, you analyze it. Okay, these, if we are talking about the age profile, these kind of customers there who want this type of product, or they want it, the fashion is changing very fast, they want to buy it, use it and throw it, the way it is there in the international market. You go to the US or Europe, people don't wear more than, especially US market, they buy a very good t-shirts, good X amount, wear it for a couple of months and then they throw it off. So that's another different line altogether. And you will see that shift has started happening in our Indian context. But again, that has to be witnessed. Right now, I'm giving you my paraphrase. That's what I feel. Maybe I'm doing that manner. But are the general consensus people are doing that manner or not? So that's where we have to analyze. So that's how you will see the research goes very deep dive into it. But I'm glad and happy that now you all have started understanding and applying on it. I hope now this primary and secondary made it very clear how we can apply into the approach of quantitative and qualitative. We good for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Maybe with more practices, we'll be able to
Correct.
much better, ma'am.
End of the day,
Right.
it's like now you all have to start applying. See, the theoretical element, the application basis done a lot. I would suggest, now we've started doing through cases and I've started working on, but I would genuinely suggest that start applying this in your corporate scenario. Even if you do it in a small bit, work on that. It will give you a lot of insight and a lot of benefit, and you'll get to know, okay, this is how it has to be done. Now, just to give you an example, right? I'll tell you, when we talk about brainstorming, correct? Now, brainstorming is also so many types. Okay. And then when we talk about, you can use Delphi technique, you can work on projective techniques if you want to go for a primary research. Sometimes people want to check the motivation, personality, and perception by using a projective techniques of word association, story completion, pictorial techniques. There are other tests which are there, Roche's ink blot test, thematic appreciation test. There is a Holtzman test. I know there is a Horn's picture arrangement test. Now, these are all specialized tests. There is also balloon technique test. My suggestion is, I don't say that you have to go into that. But then at least when you start applying the pictorial element, or let's say for that matter, experimental element, even so many times we do the case study relevance. Right now, after doing case study, a small element, you get to know a lot of people, the analysis, people use it specifically into the medical line, psychiatric line, psychological, social phenomena. They actually collect the data and then put it into the contextual format. So you will see the lot of insights coming up. I mean, see what we did. I gave you Ravi Bajaj case, and you all came up with a very good thought. And then we later put it into the structure manner. Get the purpose in place, get to know what is the methodology, get to know the research outcome, and finally how the data is going to analyze. The things gets reshaping and becomes easy, right?
Can we have more case studies like this as homework, and we come back and in the next session we can discuss it, because it gives like real-time thinking perspective about the case studies.
Right. So what we will do is, I will again, the next class, we will be doing a questionnaire designing. I'll give you a situation there and then, and you'll start working on it. Let's do practical. What happens is, I will give you case study, you all will read it. And, half of you would read it, half of you will not be read it. Let's all of us culminate together and do it together. So that's a promise. I mean, last session also we did a case study, today also. Yeah. But yes, my suggestion is you can read blogs, which I have already given it to you, right? You write my name and you will get to know a lot of article under the second research, primary research. A lot of learning is there. So I'll just put it Anubha, Walia. Maybe I'll just put it here on the screen for all of you. 1 minute. Yeah. So you can go to this blog, anubhavalia.wordpress.com. So you can click it, or, there's a lot of things you can read it from there. A lot of researchers are also there, right? And even in my book, there is a lot of case studies that you can refer to. But definitely, again, in the next class, we'll be doing it. That's a promise.
And ma'am, thank you.
Pleasure. Always welcome. So have a great Sunday. Thank you so much. And let's meet next week again.
Thank you, ma'am. Wonderful session, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.